So today we're above the old Columbia 26 Mark II, and we're going to do some retrofitting for more contemporary fixtures on the boat. And this is kind of like a little basic instructional on how to run controls aft. So yeah, here's the boat. She's an oldie but a goodie, old Columbia Mark II, mind my hammock. And we're going to modernize it. It's almost finished, but I figured I'd go over this last part of the video and show you the details. Here at the mast, at the bottom part of the mast where the jib line runs down, I've installed a swivel block. Now this is an old one that I found on the boat for I actually found this one and pulled it off a rear block stay, and it was for the spinnaker. So I wasn't using a spinnaker. I don't fly a spinnaker. So this is a great way to, recycle a pulley. This is 5/16, if I'm not mistaken, line, and this pulley will, handle anything up to 3/8. So this is fine. You always want to make sure you've got your load tolerances and braking and working load. Those are two separate things on all boats when it comes to halyards and anything that has a lot of tension. So keep in mind, read the back of all these blocks. Most of them are rated to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 with different braking loads and working loads. They're two separate things. Here I've attached basically with two stainless steel rivets. I don't know if you can see that, but that's straight to the mast, drilled 2 holes. Those are 3/16, and this boat weighs around 6,200 pounds. So, this thing's not over canvassed. It's not really going to put a lot of stress on this halyard for the jib or the main, but it's just good to make sure you use corrosive resistant hardware when you're doing this stuff, because this stuff will disintegrate. Even aluminum goes away, exposed, but stainless is better and it's stronger. So if there's any pressure, excess pressure from wind forces and gusts on this thing, it's guaranteed to stay. I reckon really the block would disintegrate before those stainless rivets would pop out. I'm sure that's a theory which is worth discussing, but that's my guess. Anyway, come on back to a fair lead. Now, one of the things you want to make sure you do is whenever you're running controls aft, you want to make sure everything's in straight lines. A lot of people make the mistake of mounting things crooked and not running 90 degrees and stuff like that. So anything that you run, you want to make sure there's not a lot of pressure on this fair lead, because it's not really designed to handle a lot of weight and tugging and whatnot. So you just want to make sure this is going to route. So we're going from, the top of the mast down. We've come to the turning block, which is kind of swivelly in every direction. It's got a swivel on it, and of course it's mounted to something that allows it to move freely. And then we're getting tensioned up. It rises up a little bit, so you got to take into account your measurement there, and then come down to the fair lead. And the fair lead is going to direct to this line, which is under load, back to your clutches and then back to your winch. Now here I've already mounted the winch, so I'm going to take you back here and show you. This winch is already mounted here. I've gone through and made a block, and I had a wood cutter actually cut this to shape the boat. So the house of the boat has a curve to it, as you can see right here. So we had to custom cut something for it. And now you've got to make sure that your lead is at 90 degrees, if it's coming off of a turn, or straight if it's going into a clutch assembly. So let me get you a better view of that. You can see that's pretty darn straight, especially when it's tensioned. And so you got to measure this stuff up visually before you mount all this hardware. And keep in mind, if you're doing a jib winch on one side, and like I've got over here, the main winch on the other side, these come out rotating for tension at the same point, right? So as it spins, it's always going to spin this way. It's always going to pull the line back like that. So on this winch, I wanted the jib closer to the top of the boat, so it would line up at 90 degrees, right? You go over here, since it's coming out and tensioning at the same point of rotation, it's going through the same process here, but you see these are lower. So when you look down this clutch assembly, you can see it's relatively straight coming out. I don't know if you can see that, but it is. And it is pulling lower. So this side is closer to the molding, to get the right angle that you want. And this side's closer to the handrail. See that? If you were to mount this lower, closer, and equal on both sides, this would have an angle to it. Even though those fair leads are in the same place, these rotate and pull towards the top, is my point. So there you have it. Something to keep in mind. Okay, we're back aboard the Columbia 26, and we're going to install ourselves a clutch assembly, and I wanted to show you how to do that. Basically, you want to pop 4 holes through your hull. Make sure you're at, a straight angle when you're drilling. You don't want to do any of this stuff. You want to keep your angles true when you're drilling straight down. This is not the right drill bit. This is just kind of a honing tool for making holes bigger. Material remover, I call it. Anyway, the holes have been drilled out already. So we've got 4 holes there. I've used tape and measurements to make it the same as the opposing finished product over there, which is just an inexpensive, for those of you who need to know, that's a spin lock. Okay, you can get them for 69 bucks, and they'll hold up to 3/8, and they hold good wind load, good braking load, and all that jazz, and they'll hold 2 lines for you. So if you have an old boat like me and you want to be a crazy offshore badass, that's what you use, because everyone will think you're crazy for not spending $90 on the better ones. So here you go. You get your bolts, and of course you're going to go through the hull and then through the shell like we discussed in one of the other videos. You can go back and watch that, but you want to get through everything basically, and make sure it's the right length. Now, one of the things I do is I put DOPs of 4,000. Now, a lot of you guys, we'll go over this in a different video, have heard 5,200, 5,200, 5,200 everything. Everything must have 5,200. No, it's really not true. It's mostly for the water line and below the water line. 5,200 is a permanent marine goop. It's an adhesive, and I typically prefer it for below the water line. I think for most things like windows, stanchions, anything that's going through hull, you want to use 4,000. 4,000 is UV. It's good stuff. It's strong. It's just actually removable in case you ever have to pull any of this stuff and actually get that stuff off. Because boy, I'll tell you, 5,200 it's pretty hard to get off. It's like engineering caulk. It's pretty nasty. So you just want to seal this really, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to put dabs, circular dabs all the way around here, and then we're going to mount the winch, and I'll be right back with that. Here we've got our war paint. This is the 4,000, and we're going to put it down. Excuse the Shaco cam. It's not easy doing this with a camera. Put it down over the hole. Make little circles around the hole. Try not to be too messy with this stuff. You typically need acetone to get it off. It is kind of gross. So there's our holes. I want to put that somewhere where it'll ruin, all your hard work and goop around on everything and really cause you a lot of stress. That's really the key here. So, it's part of sailing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this on. It's going to be pretty hard to do single handy cam, but hold on a second. Bear with me here. Oh shit. I'm just kidding. Okay, so we've got all of our bolts there. They're just going to go straight through. I cannot find the hole. There it is. This is really hard to do with one hand. Yeah. There we go, sort of. Alright, now, sometimes, if you're a dummy and you don't make your holes big enough, you can have problems with these jamming. It just depends on how big of a hole you made. So I'm going to be right back. I'm going to screw those in and then get the other 2 mounted. We're aboard the Columbia 26, and I'm going to show you some interior fixtures as far as how some of the fair leads that we were talking about in the other video go through and attach to the boat. So let me just get you over here and show you. Behind me, if you can see up here, past my harpoon, you can see that there's a bunch of nuts, stainless steel nuts and bolts. These are lock nuts or jam nuts, so they won't come loose. And there's some stainless steel washers, of course, and bolts. It's really important that all this stuff, when you're mounting it, goes through, I don't know if you can see that very well, but through the hull. with proper washers. There's not a lot of load on some of this stuff, so I'm not using massive washers, but in most cases you should use pretty big washers because you want to spread the load out. Remember, a lot of these boats, this boat has a shell, right? So there's not too much thickness here. It's about a 1/4 inch thick, the shell is, and you want to make sure you spread the load. So anytime you mount anything, a winch, anything specific that's going through the hull, like a clutch or fair lead, you want to do everything through hull so it has the most strength. You don't want to do screws or anything goofy like that, and you want to put a big washer on it and a jam nut or lock washers. Keep in mind, jam nuts are only good for like one use. Nylon lock nuts, pretty much. I mean, you use them twice, but they usually kind of don't hold as well. But a lot of people think you can reuse lock washers, the split washers. And those are actually kind of one use too. I mean, if you squish them really good over time, they actually lose their spring, and especially if they're not stainless, and they won't come back and jam the nut as well. So make sure you use nylon. It's better these days. So there you have it. Interior mounting points from exterior fixtures. Thanks.